Any headline you watch in there we go. Now we're recording. So I'm Megan Mills Hoffman. I write a blog. It's basically how to become free in an unfree world. Freedom is also a very, very big deal to me. But I do find it's an extraordinary time to be alive. Just the way the world is shifting and the things that we're upset about and we're concerned about, and to be in an opportunity to hone in on what our sovereignty is and what it is to be free people in a world that is not super encouraging of that is a big time to be alive. So what I'm hoping to do is to take this magnificent chapter, the second mastery from the sovereign way, and just distill it and give you some nuggets from me, and take it into whatever it is that you do. And definitely get your own copy, mark it up. I bought a package of 8 different colors, and I used a different color for whatever it was that I was reading. And I outlined and highlighted and starred the whole chapter. And it was only after I did that and I let it set for a week and I came back to it that I started to get a sense of all of the great content in it. The biggest theme for me is this awareness that we're building, that we are not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Just to take that on. I think so often we're confused. The idea is, how do you recognize what's true and what's false? But if we're constantly confusing ourselves that this immediate material world is all there is, then we're constantly reverting back to the confusion of what real is. And we're always looking to another authority. And I don't know about you, but there's all these different authorities and people that have told us what to do, or they're showing us the right way. And it's one thing to follow it, but then we're all human, right? If we're all in a physical material body, we're always limited by the humanity and the limitations that we are in this physical container that we're currently in. And so to be able to take stock of that and to find where your authority is and what do you rely on, and to have something to measure yourself against. The biggest thing is the kingdom is already here. It's already established. The Gethsemane and Jesus Christ on the cross and all of that that's happened and transpired, we have the Oasis right now. And so our job in recognizing how to live a sovereign way is to realize that it already exists and that we're looking to engage with it. So to practice being in the Oasis and to have the essence of what that is for us, while even living in the desert and this external structure that we're in. So for me, to be able to take a moment from your life where you felt like you had a glimmer, an essence of what life could be and who you could be in it, and to just fill that out and try on what you were feeling and what it was about that moment that makes that one stand out. For me, it was when I had my daughter about 3 weeks after she was born. It was a tough tough delivery, but there was this moment where the oxytocin kicked in, and it was just this sublime feeling that everything's fine, everything will be fine, everything has been fine, just that moment. And I know we all have our own different versions of that, but just to try on that moment and to feel what it felt like, and to realize that this is one momentary download of what it could be. So just to feel that. We have one life to live in this sovereign place. So if we remember to love and act from it, even when it's dry and hard and wretched, that's where we're learning to navigate and hold that crisis of confidence to find that oasis. Because the oasis appears right when you're in the desert and there's no water and there's no hope in sight and there's no one to tell you what to do and you have no idea where the path is. And to hold to that moment and that vision of knowing that you had in those moments of what it could be, and to just crystallize that and try that on in your being, and to practice this as a muscle, right? So it's about discernment and spiritual knowing. Isaiah 66 is just a beautiful verse. One of the lines in it is, can a country be born in a day, or a nation brought forth in a moment? My blog is to bringing forth, right? It's how do we bring this forth? Because if it already exists, how do we make it real and present? And it's about having a humble and contrite in spirit who tremble at my word, right? So we got to find our where we're human in it, and we have that vulnerability, and we have just the sense of maybe what I thought is true is actually not what's true. And how do we discern that? But to practice that as a muscle and to build it up, we assume, right, we should just know and it should just exist and we should be able to call it forth. But it actually, if we're in a physical human container and we're a spiritual being having this physical experience, we still have to get to know that, right? We have our own values and our own intuitive experience, but how does that relate to the construct of the reality that we're operating in from a day-to-day world? And so being able to practice this muscle of discernment and being able to recognize what that essence is that holds us, and defining what our home is in the structure of our house. So we can only know with certainty when we're open to not knowing, right? Humility is the doorway. Humble and contrite in spirit. I don't have all the answers. What I thought when I was 6 is actually not what I think when I'm 46, right? And to be open to the possibility that when I'm 86, it could be a very different awareness, right? I think that's where the true growth is, and being able to maintain our sovereignty is being open to the growth. And we'll never be able to grow until we can recognize that where we're at right now isn't really where we want to be. And yet to combine that with the essence of grace, right? We actually are already in the oasis, and to hold that conundrum of the proximity of one to the other. So St. Paul and St. Peter. I know that St. Peter is the rock that Jesus built his church on. And I know that Paul was the one that used to be called Saul, that the angel appeared to because he was terrorizing the Christians. And he said, hey, get it together. But there's these two really primary roles. And she talks about it in this second chapter, that St. Paul is that inner transformation, right? If you need something to link to for a metaphor, there's these two figures that have held and supported the Christian path. And St. Paul was the one that did everything the wrong way, did everything that you would revile and be horrified by, all of it. He was the card-carrying member. But he had this transformation where the angel spoke to him and said, all right, get it together. And so he had this spirit, and he went out. He was initially, his first job was to speak to the other Jews that were outside the country. And then he shifted to speaking to the Gentiles, the ones that were not of the tribe that he'd assaulted and persecuted, but the ones that were beyond that. And his job was to figure out how to communicate this message to them. And then you have St. Peter. So he's the structure and the authority. He's the stability. He's the rock that the church was built on. He's all about, like, this is how we do it. This is the way the Jews do things. This is how to be right and good. This is what you do it. So you've got the structure of how, but then you also have to have your spirit, right? You have to have your own essence in that. And those two combining together is where you find your own path of sovereignty. Because my house that I live in is not going to be the house that you live in. My home and what feels like home for me is not going to be the home that you live in. There's a beautiful line in here where Elizabeth writes, the needs of the collective society will be met when each individual follows the sovereign way of their soul. With our distinguished differences, we glide into a symphony of human interaction that gives us each deep fulfillment and serves humanity as a whole. Until the house and the home are integrated, change never occurs in reality. We just need to choose our freedom to love. So you have to try on, right? What does love look like to you as a structure, as a house? What are the principles that hold that? And then how do you feel it in your physical body? Like, where is the experience and the essence that fills that house, that structure of a house, into a full home? So then we come to grace, right? You have to calibrate, because what I thought was the best way to live in, the best house and the best structure when I was 6 is not the same as when I'm 46. And theoretically, very well may not be the same as when I'm 86. So to be able to calibrate this house, this vision, this structure that I'm going to with what I'm feeling right now, and recognizing that where I am now is not where I was then, and I can calibrate differently. And I think grace is all about being open, that the way I feel now doesn't need to be the way I always feel. And that if I can feel differently about something, then I can act differently, and I can interact and have a different experience. So I think, a lot of times when we're in this spiritual being, we're in this physical body. Okay, I got that. But the physical body seems out to thwart me and terrify me and do everything it can to thwart what it is that I see as a vision, that what it is I think is possible to live in the world. It's just not working. And so then I come to this crossroads, right? What am I going to choose? I have a moment of choice. Can I be still in the moment long enough to try on what my options are and to make a choice based on my values, my long-term values, the home that I want to create versus I need shelter out of the storm right now. What's my immediate guttural impulse response to it? And can I try on, is that danger that I operating from a place of fear, is it real or is it imagined? Can we move from making our choices from a place of fear. I'm afraid if I don't do this, all these things are going to happen. If I don't do this, or if I do this, people tell me that this is going to be the effect of that. But what's my own voice, and what's my own feeling, and what's my own inspiration and motivation to move that? And to know that I have the power to recalibrate my frequency, that at any moment I can choose to step from a place of fear to a place of love. And again, go back to that moment that you had where you had a glimmer of everything it could be, and just link to that and choose to feel those feelings and evaluate your current choice point. If you're a tadpole, you've got to get to a frog. If you're going to be turned into a prince, you have to be willing to just own your ugly, wet, slimy toadness, frogness. If you're a scullery maid, right, you got to own your sculleriness and your dirty water bucket to be able to have an option to become a princess, right? You have to be able to embrace and live in the grace that I can be these things at the same time simultaneously. And then recall a moment when you had a choice point and you had just a moment of grace to just pause and reflect and decide. The hesitation, the moment of stepping back and taking a breath to decide which way you're going to respond could have been the thing that saved you. So just think of a moment that you had a moment of hesitation, or you questioned an outcome, or you weren't quite sure that was the best thing. And in a further reflection, there was fresh insight that was deposited on you that changed the whole alchemy of what it was that you were facing. And did it shift your feeling of fear or your feeling of love from where you were coming from? Those are the moments. That's how we build our muscle. And the more we do that, and the more we can evaluate and then make a choice. And maybe it's the wrong choice, and it ended up in all these terrible, awful things that were not at all what we anticipated. But now we know that, right? We know that in a physical house, if you put the roof on over the window, you're not going to be able to see out the window. So now the next time you build a house, right, now you know how you want to adjust it and how you want to shape that. So you're able to redesign. I think grace is about being able to know that you can rebuild your house at any moment, because we're always in a process of calibrating to our spirit and our structure. And where am I in that? Is it me and I need to change my feeling? Am I choosing how I respond to it? Or do I need to change the reality of the structure that I'm trying to orchestrate out in the physical world? Because it's never easy, and it's never super comfortable. So the alchemy of pain, right? Like, it blows my mind to think that there are people who willingly choose pain in order to grow. And there's all kinds of stories about, like the saints that wore and to do a penance, they would wear a really rough coat, or they would wear nails pierced into it. But I think, again, it's just, where are you at in being able to come to terms with your physical feelings for things? Your physical continuity is not always the same with what you envision that you want to live in. But spirit without body is a ghost. Body without spirit is a corpse. So if we want to be full, vibrant, living bodies, human beings, we have to be able to work with both our body and our spirit. And so we have good and bad, right? What if it's not good or bad? What if both of these are different arms of an animal to help us figure out how to work in this suit, this physical reality that we're in, and figure out how to navigate between the path? So evil is not true opposition. It twists and inverts, creates false realities. There's the 7 deadly sins: pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, gluttony, lust. Anytime you point to something and you're like not happy at all with the way it turned out, ultimately you can trace it back to one of those. But there's also the mirror side of those. The opposite of pride, in the pure, virtuous ideal that you imagine, the opposite side of pride is dignity. The opposite of envy is belonging. The opposite of wrath is justice. Sloth is rest. Greed is abundance. Gluttony is pleasure. Lust is love. So if you look at those as muscles, and they're muscles that you need to learn to grow into what it is that you want, so that you can use it for what it is that you want to be, that can make all the difference. What's in the way is the way. Every pain, every distortion is the compost for your transformation. So in any trouble, any decision point, if you can pause and just contemplate and try on, does this move me closer to my truth and my feeling of love? Or does it move me into just the comfort, right? Body feeling, ideal feeling. And know that from a place of discernment, the spiritual knowing and love, that's where we facilitate the true alchemy. The experience of miracles, I think, is a more about calibrating to the reality and who we are in that than anything else. It's learning to recognize it and see it and work with it. Romans 8:5. Those who love according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires. So I have my house, I want my house, I will have exactly the way I want it to look, and this is how it's got to be. But if I'm constantly preoccupied with that and I lose sight of who I want to be in that, then I'm losing my way. Because those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. So, what if all of this external world is just the house that we're learning to live in so that we have an experience to figure out who we want to be in that and who our spirit is? And that actually is the path of the sovereign way.
Wow. Wow, Megan.
Did I cover it all?
Well, I'm